Hi everyone, in this particular video you're going to see a beautiful game played between two players you've probably never heard of. This is going to be a beautiful game that ends up winning a brilliancy prize, but it comes from this particularly dry looking position where white is able to come up with a beautiful attack without his queen in the attack. Let's take a look. So this was a game that came from the 1939 Chess Olympiad. It is the game between Isaias Pleci versus Lucius Endzelins. I think I've pronounced that correctly. I probably haven't, but you'll let me know in the comments how badly I've pronounced those two names. Okay, well, let's introduce these two players. So firstly, on the white side, we have Pleci. He was the Argentine champion in both 1929 and 30, and he also represented Argentina in 3 Olympiads, this being his third one in 35, 37, and then 39. In this particular Olympiad, he actually won a gold medal playing on the reserve board, and he also got the brilliancy prize for this particular game. Now, his opponent, Lucius Endzelins, well, he was a strong Latvian player. He represented Latvia again also at 3 different Olympiads. Interestingly enough, he was a very strong correspondence champion. He managed to actually draw with Lothar Schmidt he tied with Lothar Schmidt in the second World Correspondence Chess Championship, getting the 2nd and 3rd place before tiebreak. So a very strong player, and I believe he was also the Australian champion in 1960. He emigrated to Australia, where he ended up passing away in Adelaide. So 2 particularly good players, but 2 players you've never heard of before. I will just say quickly, interesting story of Isaias Pleci. You might have heard of this story before, but he actually apparently played against Miguel Najdorf, and Miguel Najdorf apparently was about to play a move where to reach the sort of time control, so where the time control would then be reset so they get extra time added onto their clock. But as he's about to play his move to then reach the time control, his opponent Pleci decides to run away with the clock. So then Miguel Najdorf could not press the chess timer, and of course Najdorf then lost on time. Well, the arbiters of this particular tournament, they weren't able to prove whether or not that this clock had been pushed or not, so as a result they gave the game to Pleci. Interesting story, but there we go. Well, there we are, those are the 2 players, and this is this game. Let's go into it. So the game started with e4, e6, d4, d5, and then knight to e2. Now, this is known as the Tarrasch Variation of the French defence. And I guess to really understand this, you need to maybe have a look at the main line, or the other most popular move, which is knight to c3. Now, this is known as the Paulson Variation. And the idea of this is quite simple. We're going to be holding on to our central pawn. If black does take this pawn, we get a nice edge in the position due to the fact that we have a more centralized knight. Meanwhile, black has actually still got this not so good pawn because it hems in this bishop on c8, although there are some interesting lines from here. Going back, so with this in mind, black normally plays against this a really tricky idea known as the winnower variation, and it gets very complicated, this position. Black is threatening to capture this knight and then be able to capture here on e4, and in doing so he also destroys the pawn structure of white. Now, I still say it's a very complicated position because white does have a lot of attacking options here. Namely, he's going to start a big invasion on this dark square, as you can see with this queen coming to g4. So it does get very complicated, and some white players don't really want to play for these complications. So going back to the initial position, why knight to d2 is sometimes also played is because now bishop b4 is no longer an option. You see, if you play here, you can just play c3 and, well, this bishop has to go somewhere else. But also, this knight also still defends the e4 pawn. So if this capture does happen, you can then take back. Now, there is a small downside to this. Obviously, you'll notice it hems in this bishop temporarily here on c1. And it also allows this move to be played, which is what black does, which is c5. Now, this is the Tarrasch variation known as the open system. And he can immediately go for this counterattack. Notice though, in here, you can't actually do c5 at this point because Well, this is a gambit line as the Marshall Gambit, but this doesn't quite work as well. White is just going to go up a pawn in this position. Notice now he has two attackers on this pawn. If the pawn goes forward, we just move the knight away and we hold on to our pawn advantage. There is a tricky line with f5 here, but it all gets a bit too open. I'm not sure I like the look of this king over here. Alright, going back. So I've kind of gone through why knight to d2 is played. I didn't really need to tell you all this because there's not really too much complications at the start. But after c5, now we see knight to f3. And this is known as the Tarrasch Variation. This is defending this other pawn on d4, and both of these pawns in the centre are defended. There's a lot of different lines here. Black can exchange on the d pawn. He can also play knight to f6, which goes into more traditional classical system lines, or even knight to c6, which kind of goes into more sort of Tarrasch friendly lines. But here in this position, we now see that very unusual move, a very, I wouldn't say, basically not a good move is what I'm trying to tell you, and that is d takes on e4. Not a great idea. The problem with this is now white was very happy to capture here, and you'll notice something. This bishop can now come out on this diagonal, and you're still attacking on c5 here. So black has to do something about it, and well, he has to make this uncomfortable move, knight to d7. In actual fact, I don't even think that is all a good move. I think really black should just have to capture here, but after this is a very unappetizing option, as now both these knights can enter the centre. Black has got he's controlling loads of central squares. He's got these two powerful knights, and I think white is already doing quite well here. Okay, so in the game though, knight to d7, well, he's holding on to his pawn over here at the very least. But after d takes on c5, knight takes on d5, c5, I think black maybe thought, okay, well, maybe the exchange of queens isn't so bad because white hasn't really got enough attacking options. But in reality, after the queen takes here and king takes, we're now going to see an endless attack from white in this position. We believe it, there will be an attack that will continue for 14 moves from this position, where white was going to absolutely annihilate black. Let's have a look and see what happens here. Well, the first move is a nice move. This is bishop to g5 with check. Now you might be pondering to yourself, well, yeah, surely can't black play f6? This is what happens in the game. But now he gets another piece of the attack with long castle. Look how many pieces white has got developed in this position. Well, black doesn't play the best move here. He probably should have done king to c7, but I think he might have been worried about what happens after bishop to f4 check. And okay, you can now block with your pawn, but after the knight captures, pawn captures, and then bishop captures, this is just a very uncomfortable position still. Notice here that this bishop is attacking this g7 square. Whilst this is defended by the knight, there's already some threats here of knight captures, and after bishop recaptures, you then hit this pawn. So king to c6 will need to be played, and after the knight captures, I mean, again, the bishop can't capture, the king has to come all the way forward. This just looks like a ridiculous position. The king is out in the open, and white has still got a lot of activity here. The best line, according to the engine, is playing the move rook to d8, which is just a paralyzing move as it's now hitting this bishop. It's pinning down all of black's pieces, and well, white has definitely got a good position here. So instead of all of this, he played the move king to e8. It's still not a great move. It now allows his another bishop to come into the attack. Well, the king keeps running. But now rook to d8 is played, that paralysing move I was talking about, but it comes with a very nasty threat. Potentially in the future there might be some bishop checks on e8 and just continuing this attack. Okay, what can black do in this position? Well, we have a lot of different continuations here. What black does in the end is he plays the move bishop to e7, which is, well, it's not a great move, but it's best of a bad bunch, to be honest with you. Other moves don't work in this position. If, let's say, he now captures this, if he captures this hanging knight on g5, then knight to e5 check. Well, the king is forced back to e7, and now checkmate occurs on e8. A lovely checkmate in two, using all of the minor pieces. Okay, going back, so you can't do this. What about just the knight captures here? Well, against this, you've still got this knight to e5 check, and well, if you now capture here, this is very nice, as now you've got a checkmate in one with this bishop coming to e8, a beautiful checkmate, a Boden checkmate with both the bishops attacking the black king. Okay, so going back then, what else can black do? Well, he can't capture this pawn because he's in check, so he might have to come here, after which we can still throw in another check. The king runs forward, and here we can throw in another check, and there's just too much stuff falling here in this position. After the king maybe runs to c7, we can start mopping up some of these pieces. You know, if this knight captures, we capture back, and we've just got a nice position. Here, well, it's just a very poor position. You know, white is going to end up just being up a couple points of material, and even in this position, black's pieces still can't get into the game. Okay, well, bishop to e7 is played instead, and now the other knight comes into e5 with another check. F takes on e5 is now kind of forced in this position, and now the other knight, a beautiful move, comes to d6 with a check. Okay, the king comes to g6, it tries to run away. Other moves don't work in this position. If you capture here with the bishop, again, this is going to be very uncomfortable, whereas after this check, the king is forced to f8, and you can checkmate with bishop to h5, a discovered checkmate here. Really, really nice, this move. So instead, the king just keeps running to g6. Now the bishop cashes in, and material is even in this position, but the attack is still going to keep coming. He's still got ideas of just putting his bishop onto e8 and just causing problems for black here. So after something like this, let's say he just does this, I think check, and then after the king runs, which he's forced to, I think you can just pick up this rook and have a very pleasant position. White is winning. So instead, well, he captures with his knight. It might be explains why he has to do this. And I think his opponent thought to himself, okay, right, no more. I'm just going to have a rubbish ending against you. Maybe I can hold it to a draw. But, oh no, the attack still keeps going. He captures someone at h8. This bishop is still stuck here. So, well, black tries to unbury his piece as he plays a6. He's intending to play b5 to get his bishop out and maybe swap off a pair of rooks and maybe survive the ending. This bishop comes back to e2. This is going to be important later on. e4 is now played. And now f4 is played here. So now this is cutting off some key squares around the black king. b5 is played. Okay, black is just intending to get his pieces out. But now the rook comes to e8, now hitting this knight. Well, the king comes back to f6 to defend it. And then there's a check thrown in. King runs back. And now h4 is played. And this is a really nice finish to this particular game. Well, the last move that black plays here is bishop to b7, which is actually a mistake. I think, again, black was looking to try and maybe swap off some pieces just so he can maybe survive in this ending. But after the move h5, a beautiful finish, you'll notice this black king cannot go anywhere. And after the king would come to h6, I will say black actually resigned after h5. The reason being after king to h6, a lovely checkmate with f7. Beautiful finish to a beautiful game. I hope you enjoyed this particular game. I thought it was really beautiful, and if you've never seen this game before, let me know in the comments. But if you have and you really enjoyed it, make sure you share this video, leave a like, and comment below why you love this position. Anyway, I'll see you soon. Take care.